David and Goliath. In the small town of Bethlehem, there lived a young boy named David, the youngest of 8 brothers in his family. While his older brothers stayed at home or prepared for important work, David spent his days outside caring for his father's sheep. He walked through green valleys and gentle hills, watching the sky and feeling close to God in the quiet fields. No one around him knew that God was already guiding this small shepherd boy toward a very special future. When David watched the sheep alone, danger sometimes came quietly from the hills and dark places nearby. Wild animals tried to take the sheep, but David did not run away and leave them behind. He stood his ground and did his best to protect the sheep, trusting God to help him. Through these quiet but difficult moments, David learned to be brave and to rely on God. One day, God sent a man named Samuel to Bethlehem to visit David's family. Samuel looked at David's older brothers, who were tall and strong, including Zuriel, and thought one of them must be chosen. But God gently showed Samuel that he does not choose people by how they look on the outside. God chose young David, showing that he looks at the heart more than anything else. In front of his father and brothers, Samuel poured oil on David's head to show God's choice. From that day on, David was chosen for an important role, even though he was still very young. Yet nothing around him changed right away, and David returned to the fields as before. He trusted that God's plan would happen at the right time and waited patiently. Sometime later, a great fight began between the people of Israel and their enemies. The two groups stood on opposite hills, with a wide valley lying between them. Day after day, the soldiers grew tired and afraid, unsure of what to do next. Fear filled the camp, and no one wanted to be the first to step forward. Every morning and evening, a huge warrior named Goliath walked out into the valley. He was much taller and stronger than anyone else, and wore heavy armor. Goliath shouted loudly, laughing at the soldiers and making fun of their god. The soldiers listened in fear and felt smaller each time they heard his voice. Back in Bethlehem, David's father asked him to bring food to his brothers at the camp. David gladly obeyed and traveled toward the place where the soldiers were staying. As he arrived, he heard loud shouting coming from the valley below. David saw the soldiers trembling and felt troubled by what he was witnessing. David began to ask the soldiers why no one was speaking up or moving forward. He could not understand how they could remain silent while God was being mocked. Some soldiers laughed at David and thought he was just a careless boy. But David believed that trusting God mattered more than being afraid. Word about David reached the king, and David was brought into the royal tent. David spoke calmly and said that no one should lose hope because of the enemy. The king looked at David and worried because he was young and small. David explained how God had helped him before and would help him again. The king tried to protect David by giving him heavy armor to wear. But David could hardly move and felt that it did not fit him at all. So he took it off and chose simple stones from a nearby stream instead. David decided to trust God fully, knowing that victory does not come from armor. With a simple sling in one hand and his shepherd's staff in the other, David slowly walked down into the wide valley of Elah toward the waiting giant. When Goliath saw such a young boy approaching without armor or sword, he burst out laughing with loud and mocking laughter. He shouted angry words and terrible threats, certain that the battle was already his. But David did not stop or turn back, because his courage came from trusting God, not from fear of the giant. Standing firmly in the valley, David lifted his voice so that both armies could clearly hear his words. He said that the giant came with weapons, but he himself came trusting in the name of the Lord, who rules over all. David boldly declared that God would show everyone that true victory does not come from swords or strength. As his words echoed across the valley, both armies fell silent, amazed by the faith of this young shepherd. Without waiting any longer, David began to run forward, his heart steady and full of trust in God. As he ran, he reached into his bag and carefully chose one smooth stone, just as he had done many times before while guarding the sheep. David swung his sling around with practiced hands, focusing not on the giant, but on God's help. At the perfect moment, he released the stone, trusting God to guide its path. The stone flew swiftly through the air and struck Goliath squarely on the forehead with great force. The mighty giant staggered, lost his balance, and fell face down onto the ground with a heavy crash. For a moment, the entire valley was silent as everyone stared in disbelief at what had happened. Then the people of Israel realized that God himself had given them victory through a young shepherd boy. After the battle, David became known throughout the land, and people sang songs about his bravery and God's help. King Saul brought David into the palace and gave him important responsibilities in the army. But as David's success grew, jealousy quietly filled the king's heart. Through many difficult years, David learned to serve faithfully and trust God even when life was unfair. Saul later died in battle. God began to fulfill the promise he had made to David long ago. The people of the tribe of Judah came first and anointed David as their king in the city of Hebron. David ruled them with humility, remembering that leadership was a gift from God, not a reward he earned. He continued to wait patiently as God completed his plan step by step. In time, leaders from all the tribes of Israel came together to recognize David as their rightful king. With joy and celebration, they anointed him as king over the entire nation. David established his throne in Jerusalem, which became known as the City of David. From there, he led the people to follow God together as one nation. Even as king, David never forgot the days when he was a young shepherd watching sheep in the fields. He knew that God was the true king, and that he was only a servant chosen to lead with care. David ruled with faith and humility, always seeking God's guidance in every decision. His life showed that true strength and victory come from trusting the Lord.